Welcome to Coffee with Dan. This morning, I'm talking about Let's Talk Business with Mr. Rohan Pallewatta, who is presently the Executive Chairman of Lanka Harness Company Private Limited. The core business of this company is the manufacture of impact sensors for automobile airbags and seat belts. And his customers include Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Mitsubishi and Mazda of Japan, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler of USA, Volvo, Saab, BMW, Aston Martin, Opel and Renault of Europe. Good morning and welcome, Rohan, to Coffee with Dan.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Dan.
Rohan, I remember you as a colleague at law college, and you came with a guitar in hand always, and you used to entertain the law college students, guys and girls those days. And what really made you a lawyer turned businessman?
Well, I took my oaths and started my practice, especially the high courts of Gampaha. And then always there was this cognitive dissonance, as a professional. Of course, I respect the profession of law, but there was this cognitive dissonance where I was wondering, what is my contribution to the national GDP? So that is where I was thinking the noble task would be to bring in some foreign revenue to the country. So it is that larger motivation, I think, that prompted me to embark on what I am doing today.
Now, making sensors was quite a challenge, I guess, at that time when you started this. So what were your initial steps in getting into this kind of business? Because, this is a high-tech industry, and your customers include the world-leading manufacturers of automobiles, as I earlier mentioned. So in that case, how did you attract customers, especially being a person from Sri Lanka with, in Sri Lanka we don't make automobiles that much. So what made you get into this?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, it was not an easy journey. It was not a straight line to success. Especially the device that I make is a device that would differentiate between life and death. So it is a critical component. So the function of the product that I do is so bonded with the brand names that you mentioned, and they would hardly impart to any other country this kind of product. But then I had to travel many times to Japan especially to convince the first few customers to purchase this from Sri Lanka. But they were not confident. Initially what they said, at the outset what they said was, why should we do business with a virtual non-entity from a hardly heard country? So that was the initial response. But from there onwards, I persevered, I kept at it, and then here I am.
As a young starter in this line of businesses, it's always not possible for a person to start with such a capacity to convince your manufacturers in Japan, as you mentioned, and taking the business forward. So how could you survive in this type of market?
Well, the uniqueness of the product that I do is its quality requirement, which is called 1 ppm quality. 1 part per million is the defect tolerance rate, and that is the highest level of quality anywhere in the world. And when I embarked on this, I was told by many that this certainly would be impossible to do in Sri Lanka. But I had ideas to the contrary, looking at all the great monuments built by our ancestors almost 2,000 years ago, and the precision work that they had undertaken, works like the Diya Beduma. I thought that this DNA must be somewhere in our people. I thought by providing the right leadership that I could rekindle this DNA. So it is with this confidence that I managed to establish this.
Now you have these BOI factories based in Biagam, I understand.
Yes.
The Harness Lanka. And it's also important that you get the necessary government support to get into such a venture. So what sort of government support you got in starting up your company?
Well, I should appreciate the function of the government when embarking on my venture. And even now, every day when you operate in a BOI zone, you need their services, and they are giving us excellent service, I should say.
Now, talking about the country's GDP and your contribution, where do you stand?
Well, last in 2017, it was around $80 million total turnover.
And as a developing country, what sort of recognition that you get from these international companies to proceed and sustain in this type of business? Because we know that there are many competitors coming nowadays, from various parts of the world, not only in Sri Lanka, but from various other parts of the world. And in order to sustain in the market environment, it's not easy with a product like this, especially if you don't have the customer confidence.
Sure.
So what is your success in that?
Well, my success depends on the quality, as I said, the quality that I maintain. The whole strategy is maintaining that quality, because 1 ppm quality, 1 part per million defect tolerance rate, is the highest quality in the world. There is no quality beyond that. So in order to have the confidence of the customer, we have to have a foolproof system where there will be no defects. So that is the way that I, maintain. And as I said, I started by exporting this to Japan. But as at now, I'm exporting this product to about 17 countries. And the year-on-year growth has been around 10%.
And I understand that catching a market like Germany with BMW and Mercedes, or rather Volvo from Sweden, is not an easy task. So considering the type of business, you very correctly mentioned that your business is based between life and death.
That's right.
The sensor is very important nowadays, and it's by law that we have to wear a seat belt, and the seat belt is connected to the airbags or the ABS systems. And what sort of liability that your company has towards your customer, that is the vehicle manufacturer?
Well, we of course have a product liability insurance, and it is a imperative condition when we operate this kind of operation. You have to have a PL insurance, product liability insurance. So that is the guarantee that we give our customers. But then, although we have a product liability insurance, supposing if there is an accident and the airbag does not come out, and if it is a device which we have manufactured here in Sri Lanka, the simple equation is you will have to walk towards exit. You will have to exit your business. That is the equation.
This morning in Coffee with Dan, I have Mr. Rohan Pallewatta, a lawyer turned businessman, and he is presently the executive chairman of Lanka Harness Company Private Limited. His company's core business is the manufacture of impact sensors for automobile airbags and seat belts. And his customers include Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Mitsubishi, Mazda of Japan, and then the German brands like BMW, and then the US brands of Chrysler, Swedish brand of Volvo, and many other. Mr. Pallewatta ranked into the country foreign revenue worth over 80 million USD in 2017. And running a business of this nature, getting USD 80 million in 2017 last year, is not an easy task. And as an individual, you have come up to this status, I'm sure, with the help of your labor force, the human element. So how do you see the competence of Sri Lankan human element in this sort of a high technological environment?
For the past 2 years, two decades, I have been in this business and operating, and these operations are being done by employing the Sri Lankan employees. So which means they have proved that the Sri Lankans can do. So it is all, workers are from all, since the factory is in Biagama, they are from Pugada, Giridhara, all those villages around. And they have, achieve this quality, and it is possible. And the other thing is we have what is called a trust culture in my company, and we do not monitor the employees. And because when they put up the factory, they wanted to know whether they could fix CCTV cameras in the factory and have monitors around my table. I declined. I believe the moment you fix a camera behind a human being, you are encroaching human dignity. So we have what is called trust culture. Recently, there was, on Facebook, there was someone has posted that I am the man who's having the most number of labor cases. But the fact is, there is no single case that is being filed by any of my employees. And the contrary is, I have sent almost all my employees to Japan. But the uniqueness is not sending them to Japan. Everyone has returned to date. Not a single employee has vanished in Japan. And even the previous Japanese ambassador, Mr. Hobo, His Excellency Hobo, he visited my factory at least twice. He thought, myself being an attorney at law, I must have devised the most comprehensive bond agreement so that they cannot, disappear in Japan. But that is not the case. We don't get a single signature from our employees. And we have a trust culture, and trust culture is necessary because then if a person feels that he is being supervised by a camera, then he is working for the wrong purpose. Because he is working because he is being supervised. But people should work because they take dignity in what they do, not because they are being supervised.
Yes, that is very important because, the confidence of an employee towards the employer is very important. And nowadays, we consider that human resource development is based on a relationship concept between the employer and the employee, unlike the control test, like you mentioned, because in law we understand, we learn that in the past it was a control test that governed the relationship between the employer and the employee, but now it has turned into a kind of a relationship that you have very well understood, as you mentioned, to have this relationship going, the confidence to build up between the employer and the employee. But now, considering our labor force, Sri Lankan labor force,
yes,
do you think that our, not only the urban, educated and trained employee base, but also the rural employees are fit to take up such challenges?
Yes, my organization acts as a case to prove what you said, because it is all the employees are from all these rural areas, and they have proved that they can do one of the highest quality products that is required by these big conglomerates. So therefore we have already proved that with them. And in my company I still do the recruitments, and I make sure to employ the first time employees so that I can mold them into what the organization align with them with the organizational objectives. So first time employees, they don't come with baggages, right? And then they are sent to Japan for a training, and then they pick up the Japanese culture. And even the speed that they walk changes once they come back after the training. So it is possible. It has been proved time and again that our people are capable. For example, now it takes about, I think, more than 6 months to train an employee in Bangladesh for a Juki machine. But in Sri Lanka, it's about 6 weeks. So we have intelligent labor, not just labor.
You won the Junior Chamber International in 2006, that awarded you the most prestigious award, the top in the category of business and entrepreneurial accomplishment for your contribution to the Sri Lankan economy. And with all your expertise in the industry now, you embark in promoting Sri Lanka's brand along with your ABS systems. So how did you manage to conquer the international market in that respect to take the Sri Lankan brand forward?
Actually, I have to correct there, because we cannot sell this as a Sri Lankan brand, because in this automobile industry, there are first-tier suppliers, second-tier suppliers. To some companies, I am the first-tier supplier. For some companies, I am the second-tier supplier. So, like Denso did, we cannot do this because the customers might lose confidence if they think that this is not coming from the original car manufacturer. So therefore we have actually secret agreements, and therefore we are not doing a branding of the country of this product.
Do you have any...
and also, I'm sorry to disturb you, but as to how I embarked onto other international markets, because this is a product that is always, that you will always get orders or you get new business through a referral. So it is always one big automobile maker will refer me to another. I mean, you can't just go and, have a stall at the international trade fair and expect someone to come and buy your product. It is not something like that. So it has always been through a referral that I have been managed to expand.
Now, considering the type of business that you are involved in, and you need to expand it to a much wider audience, and especially when you are getting more and more business from these types of businesses which are very, very lucrative, I would say. So how would you manage in the future to expand your business?
Actually, we still have capacity to expand based on our core product. There is a huge demand. Recently, there was a key player that had a defective airbag, and in USA alone, around 38 million vehicles have been recalled. And the entire 38 million replacement order has come to Sri Lanka. So therefore, I'm putting up another factory in Biagama, a huge factory. We are spending around $5 million to put this factory. And we are expanding.
Now, considering the Sri Lankan economy and especially the tax regime, do you think that the Sri Lankan tax regime in these areas are quite adaptable for your type of business, or does it contribute towards the building of the national economy in that respect?
Well, there is no complaint as such, because a government needs taxes to collect taxes to run a government. But there are certain grievances, such as now I'm bringing in some new machinery worth few million US. And initially they said you are a BOI company, so there will be no taxes. But then I'm yet to verify this. But then what I heard was that they will have 15%, PAL, port and airport levy. But whatever the name is, so supposing, say it is a machine of about $1 million US, the PAL will come to about 250 lakhs. Right, that is about 25 million. So, which is once again a big amount of money for a company. So, these areas, I think, because now using this machinery, everything that I produce in this country will be exported, and there will be foreign exchange that is coming to the country. And I'm not going to sell that machine, because there is no relevance. I can't sell it to anyone in this country. Of course, I'm ready to sign any bond. And I think this kind of modern equipment, when they're coming to the country, we should have a policy to have absolutely tax-free or PAL or whatever, zero duty, and that they should come to Sri Lanka, because unless it is the poorest of the poor people that sell their labor, are we to sell only labor and expand only our garment industry, or are we to bring in new machinery and get into the next level of production, designing, and aren't we ever going to get into the real hardcore of production?
Rohan Pallewatta, a lawyer turned businessman, but now moving into politics. What really do you see this country is lacking?
Well, I think one thing is the management is lacking. And also, one of the key components of management is decision making. So I see that some of the major decisions that ought to be taken are not being taken by the authorities, necessary authorities. And also you have to be compassionate about the people of this country. So whenever I take my vehicle out of my gates every day to go to my office, there's a school bus passing that way every day. And the school students with their uniforms are hanging by the windows. This is after 70 years of so-called independence. And our public transport is at that level. So do the people deserve this? Aren't we compassionate about that? aren't we going to address these issues? So this is when I thought, doing a business, making a lot of money, making a lot of profit, and accumulating the material wealth that you once wanted. And then, is that the whole purpose of life? Or do I have a bigger purpose for the country that I became successful? Don't I have to make a meaningful intervention rather than criticizing the authorities?
Now, we know that there are several examples in the world, especially in the US, when you get presidents coming from a business background, and also especially Donald Trump, who is the president of US, is a businessman turned politician. But in Sri Lanka, we are not yet ready to accept that. What's the type of change that you want to make?
Well, that is the very reason that I'm coming out. Actually, I'm not motivated by the fact, or I'm not influenced by the fact that Donald Trump became president in USA. My decision is totally independent of the fact that Donald Trump becoming president of USA. And the difference that I believe, this might look a mountain to climb. This might look like an ocean. But then, unless someone take this bold first step towards change, nothing will change. Because if I have to come through the political system will make you corrupt the moment. It's a corrupt system that will get you up there. But it is only a political person who comes into politics that can serve the executive presidency to the letter. Because even the Constitution demands that the president should be a political person. He cannot affiliate himself to any parties. So it is only a person who comes as an apolitical person then serve the country proper to the letter as it is in the Constitution.
Now in Sri Lanka, our rural population consists of over 70% of the voter base. So it's not easy unless you really address the rural population and especially uplift the rural economy of our population to get into the way of serving. And some of the allegations that are leveled against you is that, there are politicians who would give all kinds of bountiful promises but never end up, or rather, end up in certain ways, but in fulfilling those things, but not to the expectations of the poor voters in this country. So in that case, do you have any kind of vision to execute really now rather than later?
Sure. I have always delivered in my life. And we have come out with, I should say, not only myself. There's a think tank behind the whole exercise. And we have come out with a national blueprint, the master plan for the country. And it is in our website as well. It's a 60-page document. It gives a comprehensive idea as to what we stand for and what do we intend implementing in this country in the next 5-7 years. And we are confident. We stand by that. We don't want to criticize anyone. We don't want to do the blame game anymore. So here is a program for the country which we have put forward. And also this grassroots level question. Of course, we are appointing agents, our members, to all more than 14,000 Gram Seva divisions. And we are getting to the grassroots. And we have been conducting meetings in Matara, Ratnapura, Abilipitiya, then Malsiripura. And the enthusiasm of the people is enormous. And these people are from the grassroots.
In Sri Lankan political culture, it's, for us, it's unique. We understand that we need to win the hearts of the people in order to do that. But with a business-minded environment, how do you see the importance of developing Sri Lanka as a nation, because we have to have one common policy running to some years, like how India shined, with India shining policy brought up by the former PM in India, sometime back in 1980s. We can't be changing the policies always because the country will not survive. In such a situation, you think that you will have a future?
You are spot on. Now, that is exactly that we intend doing, at the very outset. That is to get the policy corrections. And we will be having our national policy initiative on the 18th of December at Kingsbury. And there will be so many national papers that will be presented. And that is what we will profess and propagate within the next, few months and few years. And that is where we are going to base our, governance on. And also, let me tell you in conclusion that the confidence, even when I embarked on my business, I was told by many that this is impossible, but I accomplished that. So let me do it for a second time.
Let me ask you finally, don't you think that being in the business is better than being in politics?
I think country comes first, my business comes second.
This morning in Coffee with Dan, I had Mr. Rohan Pallewatta, who is presently the Executive Chairman of Lanka Harness Company Private Limited. He's a lawyer turned businessman, and his core business in Lanka Harness is manufacturing of impact sensors for automobile airbags and seat belts, with his customers including leading automobile brands such as Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Mitsubishi, Mazda of Japan, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler of USA, Volvo, Saab, BMW, Aston Martin, Opel, Renault of Europe. And Mr. Pallewatta's business contributes a foreign revenue to this country worth the $80 million in 2007. And he's recognized as an outstanding contributor to the Sri Lankan economy, became the Junior Chamber International Award winner for the most prestigious award, the top. So thank you very much, Rohan, for being here this morning in Coffee with Dan.
Thank you, Dr. Dan.